So this section is a panel discussion, and it's going to involve participation from all of you, which based on Dr. Chamberlain's presentation is not going to be a problem. So this is, I think, a topic, like all our topics, is going to be of keen interest. So this is called Where Can I Find Help? This is Prescribed Fire Initiatives. So we have three panelists. They're going to talk about a few initiatives for a little bit, and then we've got lots and lots of time for questions. So, Brad, I'm just going to start with you. Just introduce yourself, and you'll take it from there. You can talk about whatever initiatives you wish to talk about, and then we'll go down the line and so we can start taking questions. So, everyone, Brad, out there.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brad Alexander. I'm the Private Lands Program Manager with Georgia DNR in our Wildlife Resources Division. And so our Private Lands Program was started back in the 90s as part of a realization that for us to meet our objectives, our mission as an agency to preserve and protect and promote wildlife resources in the state, we've got to work with private landowners. I feel sometimes funny sitting behind the podium, I can't see half the room. So for us to meet our objectives, we've got to work with private landowners. So, over 90% of the state is privately owned. And we've got some fantastic WMAs and state-owned lands that we do a pretty good job of managing for wildlife on. But those are scattered around the state. And when you think about their footprint in the state, it's a small portion of the state. It's also a huge task to think about working with, the many landowners across the state. And so partnerships are really key to what we do. And we work very closely with a number of folks in the room to help meet our objectives, working with landowners. And so I'll just mention a few of those. On our staff, we have our main focus really is providing technical assistance to landowners. So we've got 9 biologists in our program, and then there's 6 more that we've got with a very strong partnership with Quail Forever. They provide the exact same services that our biologists do. They'll come out and meet with you on your property, talk to you about how to manage wildlife for your property. So, what Dr. Chamberlain was talking about, the use of prescribed fire and different practices might change depending on site-specific requirements for your property. So we'll come out and develop a plan for your property and then help you find resources for that. Also through that partnership, we've started hiring, started developing habitat crews, what we call habitat crews. Our first one was down in the Albany area, and this is a crew of folks that are hired by Quail Forever, funded by Georgia DNR. That will actually come out to your property and help you burn. We found a lot of landowners down in Southwest Georgia, have smaller properties. It's hard for them to find private vendors, and so we thought we could help, GFC in their efforts to help landowners burn through that effort. And so we're hoping that we can use that crew to really kind of focus on landscape scale habitat change for wildlife, because that's real important. Dr. Chamberlain again mentioned, for turkeys, it's, a home range is 2,000 acres. So if you're managing less than that, you're really not impacting populations unless you're working with landowners in your area, working together to create those landscapes. So we're hoping those habitat crews will do that. We're also supporting PBAs, prescribed burn associations. I'll let others talk more about that. RT can talk more about that. A new initiative that we're piloting right now and hope to grow in the near future for landowners that are around Moody Forest WMA, and by around I mean very close, within 5 miles of that WMA. We're working with GFC to pay for the burning for those landowners, and it's a pilot right now. We're testing out this model, but we hope to see it grow. and incorporate more WMAs, but we're hoping that that effort, you know, expands the impact of that WMA. We can see, you know, population level improvements for wildlife through those efforts. And so we're also, you know, looking for opportunities throughout the state to form those landscape cooperatives, work with landowners in groups, and form those, you know, develop landscapes where we can see population change for wildlife. We've got our BQI plate funds, the license plate that some of y'all you've probably seen with the deer, the turkey, and the quail on it. We're hoping to use those funds to develop these landscapes and provide cost share opportunities for landowners. I think that's good for my spiel.
Okay, well, I'm Noah Ford. I'm the state biologist for Natural Resources Conservation Service, and the last couple months I'm also the state forester. And so NRCS as an agency is tasked with delivering conservation solutions through voluntary conservation programs. So some of these programs that we've got a number of programs statewide, actually nationwide, that provide some financial assistance and technical assistance to foresters, private landowners, farmers, foresters, ranchers. And so some of our programs that you probably heard, some more popular ones, the EQIP, or the Environmental Quality Incentive Program. We've also got the Conservation Reserve Program. We've also got some easement programs. So these are some of these programs. Again, they're voluntary based, and they're to help landowners with addressing resource concerns on the property. So things like soil quality and water quality, forest health and productivity, and wildlife habitat. So we will work one-on-one with landowners and develop a conservation plan catered towards your property and based on your goals and objectives to try and get the property up to what you would like to have it be used for. So we really target some of these working lands. So as much as we try to push some of our own programs and priorities, we still understand that these are working lands. We want you to continue working the properties and meeting your own goals and objectives. We have offices throughout the state, so every single county is represented by someone within NRCS. We don't necessarily have an office in every county, but there is somebody that will represent that county throughout the state, regardless of where you're located. We are rely very heavily on partnership, just like Brad was talking about. Not all of our staff in our offices are foresters or biologists. They've got a number of different disciplines. So we rely on some of these partnerships with DNR, Quail Forever, and Georgia Forestry to do some of our planning for us. And in some cases, they'll go out and check some of these practices that some of our producers have contracts on and certify that, yes, these were done, so we can submit payment for that landowner. And so through this program, we've got a number of different practices to help landowners, tree planting, fighting invasive species, and of course, prescribed burning is one of the big ones that we're trying to push more and more. That's probably enough that I'll talk about.
Hello, my name is R.T. Lumpkin. Work as the Prescribed Fire Center Coordinator down in the Columbus area. My focus is working with private landowners to get more fire on the ground. That's my whole goal in life in that particular area. The Forestry Commission obviously has a big effort to control and promote the use of fire because it's beneficial all around. And in just about every county in the state of Georgia, we have resources and people that will come out and help you conduct a prescribed burn, install your fire breaks, work on some management plans like Noah mentioned, give advice on cost share programs, We offer training classes for many people to come out and get a certification class. I think Ken has got a couple coming up soon that we may can get you some more information on as well. Some of the things that we partner with our other agencies with, the PBAs, we do hands-on training events a lot of times, and that's, instead of sitting in the classroom and learn about fire and get talked to about it, you actually get to hold a drip torch and write a burn plan and see what the fire breaks look like. But those are happening all around the state, and I would suggest that you just reach out to some of your local partners. Go visit your local GFC office. It's a great place to start. It's probably the closest place to. Just go talk to them and start a conversation and ask where some of these resources are. And chances are they can point you in the right direction. The other programs that we offer down where I'm at, and I think a couple of other people have mentioned this, is a program I call LIFT, or Landowner Field Trips. When we plan a learn and burn or an event around a prescribed burn, everybody knows that the weather's not always perfect on that day when you throw a dart at the calendar, right? But good prescribed burns happen all the time. And when people's schedules line up, we meet up at the prescribed burn and watch it happen and learn about that that's going on. It's a little less formal, where people kind of feel more open to asking questions and exploring and being able to talk to the people and the landlords on the ground and ask them direct questions. That's a really great program as well. There are a number of cost share opportunities around the state. Some are regional based, as Brad mentioned, but some are statewide. Your local forester or ranger or DNR, NRCS partners can point you in the right direction. But sometimes the Forestry Commission may have a program that fits your needs, but NRCS may be better, or the Fish and Wildlife has programs that are out there to help you assist with prescribed burns. So it's just a matter of making these connections if you're a private landowner, so that you know who to talk to and when. I would say that if I've learned one thing over the past 4 or 5 years doing this job, is that as soon as you hold a drip torch and put fire on the ground, you're kind of hooked to that point. And if you can ever involve somebody else with your prescribed burn on any level, it kind of lights the fire for them. So I would encourage you to get involved with some of these learning burns and help with them and participate if you can.
Thanks, RT. I'm going to see if I can grab this other mic up here, because now is the point where you can ask your questions. This thing may be, oh, here it comes. Awesome. So if you're a landowner or you have landowner questions, you need some assistance, again, now is your time. We have a question right here. We'll get things started. We'll run down to you. Oh, you got it? Okay. I'll stay over this way.
So Brad, and was it Norm within RCS?
No.
No, thanks. Y'all both mentioned that y'all cooperate with private landowners, and you'd like to help private landowners along this path. What is your acreage threshold for being willing to work with a property landowner?
With OCS, we have no acreage minimum or maximum.
So for some of our cost share programs, given that we're looking at wildlife populations, some of them have an acreage limit, but for just the technical assistance, there's no limit. I've worked with folks with at half an acre up to thousands of acres.
And that's even without a protected species.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Okay, guys. We have DNR, GFC, NRCS up here to help you out with your landowner questions. Everybody thinking hard? Oh, there we go.
So one question I get often from working for the Forest Service, the U.S. Forest Service, is that landowners are always coming up and asking, Stacy, we have an agency with trucking, we ask the folks, hey, we want to about the farms, et cetera. And, well, you can burn our land too, and so forth, and I always like pointing in the right direction for resources as well, so I'm gonna get some information from all sounds like about what you guys have available. Because oftentimes it's, once I tell them the process for us, if they're joining landowners for us, that we have the agreements and all this, it's like it's a lot harder than they think it might be. So it sounds like this might be something that we could start pointing folks towards. Yeah, I'll just not get thought
Well,
about
I will say, GeorgiaWildlife.com / landowners. Pretty sure it's / landowners. We have a lot of information there about resources. We've got our landowners guide to conservation initiatives on that website. It's a PDF with some brief explanations of a lot of these different programs, and then contact information for our staff and Quail Forever staff. The Georgia Prescribed Fire Council recently put a page on their site that points landowners in a lot of different to a lot of different resources specific for prescribed fire. So those are two good resources to point landowners towards.
Obviously been mentioned with NRCS, we do have a website that has a bit of information on it. But the best thing you could probably do is just contact the local NRCS office and just talk to them about what programs are available. Because the website can be fairly vague, the programs change a lot. So just actually having a good conversation with the NRCS staff would be a good way to start.
So the Forestry Commission actually has some targeted programs around specific federal lands, and I thought I saw a Forest Service shirt, the gentleman that asked the question, but especially up in North Georgia, there are targeted funds or resources available to private landowners. All you have to do is reach out and figure out what that process is for where they're at.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, that's probably for RT there too. I know we have the Southwest Scrap Iron Association represented here with Bill Triangle, RCB. You know, we're seeing PBAs springing up in a lot of border states around us. Can you talk about how that came to be and how that process could be replicated?
Sure. So I'm most familiar with the area I work in, and it's about 13 counties now. It started out with 7, and it was basically a bunch of partners got together and kind of said, this is something that needs to happen. Key people in local geographies made a concerted effort to try to get more fire on the ground. And that can start with something very small. And when I was hired to do this job, the idea was basically get more fire on the ground. And I thought the number one way that we can do that is actually to listen to our private landlords and figure out what we need to do. 90% of our land is forested and owned by private landlords. It doesn't do any good for Brad to tell us what to do, Noah or me. We can give input, but if we actually want to make some progress, I feel like we need to listen to those private landowners. So that's one key thing in our PDA or focal area is we developed a network where we can communicate with landlords. And we took ideas and got surveys and feedback from them, and then talked to those partners that we assembled to begin with and found ways to fill in gaps and prescribed burn trailers or resources that have kind of sprung up across the South. And I think we had the first one, TNC, we kind of strapped it together, but TNC, Eric kind of twisted his arm and he found an old trailer in the woods somewhere, and we fixed it up, and we got an NWTF grant to purchase a blower in it, and it was just a concerted effort on a large scale to find resources and put them together to make it happen. At the conclusion of this upcoming year, thanks to those partnerships and grants grants, we'll have close to $1 million in cost share awarded to landowners in that program. There's more efforts coming on board, but some training opportunities for people to work on task books. But it all started with that idea of people just in a certain area saying we need to focus on that and finding 2-3 people to start with, and then growing it from there.
Our team's got a fantastic effort going on in the fall line there, west, east of Columbus. George has got a fantastic PBA getting started in Southwest Georgia, and then there's also efforts with longleaf alliance and tall timbers and other partners. Starting one in Southeast Georgia. Around the country, a lot of these PBAs are started by landowners, and I would encourage any landowners that are in the room that are interested in pursuing a prescribed burn association to get with one of us and to discuss that, because that's a fantastic way to start these things. We often think, this is the way we should do it, but if the landowners, some leaders in the landowner community, stood up and said, this is the way we think we should do it in our landscape, I think that's probably the best way that we could go about this effort. We would be more than happy to work with you and find resources to help you to get those started. NC State has a fantastic website that's collected a lot of information about PBAs, and even getting into like legals, documents and planning documents on how to put together those, and then examples from around the country from different models of how those work.
Okay, great. Other questions? So I had recently learned about the burn trailer, so I want to know what's on the burn trailer, and then also about the habitat. So I was interested to know how that works.
So we've got the burn trailers are there's 7 around the state right now, and probably more in the works. They're all a little bit different, but most of them have hand tools. Some of them have big blowers. All of them have like backpack blowers and chainsaws and things like that. Typically tools that are useful on a prescribed burn that aren't necessarily good common garden tools. Longleaf Alliance on their website has a map of where those are in the state and contact information on how to get them. A lot of the RC&Ds around the state or Georgia Forestry Commission kind of rents those out. There's usually a small charge just to help maintain a fund to maintain the equipment. Our habitat crew, in partnership with Quail Forever, we've got a four-person crew that's based in Albany area, and just working with one of our biologists in that area. They can get you hooked up with that crew. It is, the GFC, is really the leader in that realm. If you want help implementing prescribed fire on your property, GFC is, probably the first place to start. They've got fantastic crews in most counties that'll come out and help you burn. The habitat crew is really meant to focus on in Southwest Georgia on specific landscapes that we see as important, specifically for quail, but for a lot of other songbirds and critters, and to supplement in the activities of Georgia Forestry Commission, and also vendors that there's a lot of landowners that it's not financially feasible for a vendor to come out and burn. So, but GeorgiaWildlife.com/landowners. We've got contact information for our biologists. So if you're interested in that habitat, it's probably the best way to go about starting that process. Does that answer your question?
I'll add one short detail. Some of the trailers have UTVs or ATVs on them, and it may require some level of training to be able to use that device, that piece of equipment in the trailer. I think Sue is in the back. She's got, where she is back there, she's got a couple of them for the RCDs, and we'll be able to contact to find out what's specifically in the one closest to you, unless you're over here, Columbus. Now, I'd be glad to help. I'm gonna say I haven't seen all of them, and they could have one, the ones I've seen have not had a torch on it. But that may have, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, we're doing really well on time, so there is time for additional questions. If you're a landowner, a land manager, you work with landowners, there's any questions you have?
I'm new to the Georgia Interagency Coordination Center for dispatching for the Chattahoochee County National Forest. And I was curious to know, we field a lot of phone calls that come in from the public. And I was curious to know of the three agencies represented, do you have maps online where I can push the public towards, because for your upcoming burns, they'll call and wonder about smoke that's in their area. And there'll be concerns about the potential for fire and different things. You know, as U.S. Forest Service, we do have maps that the public can go to, so we'll turn into that. But what do you all have as far as that I might be able to help the public with?
So on all, I'm gonna say that's a two-part answer. On all fires larger than, or we'll just call it large fires, I think 1,000 acres is the number. Get reported to the media and get kind of pushed out on multiple social media sites. And I'm gonna have to just plead a little bit of ignorance and forgiveness here, but either we have or will have at some point in time in the near future a way to push people towards a public website to be able to do those permits. It may be still under development. I'm gonna look towards Ken. It's still under development, but we hopefully in sometime in the future will be able to have a direct site. It may not tell you the pinpointed location, but kind of a general idea.
We do have wildfire, right? There is a public.
We do, the Forestry Commission does have a public facing,
That's correct. Yes, sir.
webpage for wildfires. So, and
Yes, sir. And I'm familiar with that one. I was just wondering also too, just from the DNR and NRCS side of the house too.
From NOCS's point of view, we don't release much of anything from our contracts. Those are with private landowners, and we can't reveal any of their personal information. And just the way that our contracts work is that it's up to the landowner to get the resources that they need and get that burn implemented. And we don't control any of the, when exactly they do it, how they're going to do it, as long as they're following all the applicable laws, then that's between them and whoever they hire to get that work done.
Yeah, so any burn that DNR does or private landowner does, they have a permit with Georgia Forestry Commission. So that, as far as, somebody wanting to find out information about a prescribed burn that they think is going on, I think GOC would probably be the contact them.
I'm gonna add to what RT was saying, there's gonna be a public viewer, and you're gonna be able to see the whole stage, you're gonna be able to zoom in, see every permit, it's gonna give acreage, and it's going to give what is it a silviculture, or is it a land clearing burn, the acreage, and it'll show the smoke, so it'll show you the direction of the smoke. We're gonna keep it probably at a multi-county scale so that people can't zoom right in, because we don't want people harassing our burners. We want them to be able to see, know where the fire, know that there's a burn, but it's in this general area, not down at the street level. So when you look at it, it may be a multi-county area that you'll be able to click on a dot and you'll be able to see how many acres and what type of burn it is.
Other questions?
I have a direct question for you, but I'm curious from your take, looking at the diverse audience, what can the audience do for your programs? What would you ask them for us, for your program?
Well, an effort that we're starting up, getting started up going to be doing some research with UGA is actually, talking with landowners about what they need from us as an agency to implement practices to improve the property for wildlife. So I'm always looking for feedback. We're often telling folks this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do for wildlife. If landowners have ideas about what would help them out the most, let us know. I'm always curious. I find that I don't get a whole lot of that kind of feedback, so I will.
Okay, I'm just kind of following what Brad was saying. I'm also very interested to see with some of our contracts that we have with our landowners, what is working, how well is it working? Is there anything that they could recommend or suggest that we may be able to change it? I'm always pulling out looking for input on these things.
One of the things I found, at least in my general area, is we have a lot of people that burn, or we have trouble finding people that are direct hire for burn, if you will. If y'all know people that yes, I'll come look at this piece of property and give a quote and go burn it. We're starting to lose some of those people around the state, and the more we can promote those people and give them business and get more prescribed burning done, the more it will benefit everybody. What I've seen in many instances is a consultant, a biologist, a forester is working on a package kind of process, and then burning is part of that. But the contractors out there, we keep a list of our website to, you can go to and look for vendors or contractors or foresters all across the state. But whenever it comes time to burn a 10 or 20 acre tract, we need experienced people in those areas that know NRCS has a small landowner program that may be cost effective for a vendor or a contractor to actually participate in. That's one of the key things is just being open to that communication and sharing what's actually out there. And in my opinion, sometimes we all work together very well, but sometimes the small details kind of fall through the crack, and just make sure we communicate those small details. It's very important to reach more product.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I think this question is mostly for Noah. Noah, I know you know Ryan Phillips, and he had an idea a while back about kind of breaking the mold of EQIP, where EQIP's pretty much contracts with the landowner and looking at maybe contracting with the practitioner and giving the practitioner an opportunity to build capacity, to build a group of landowners to burn for, and kind of eliminating the bottleneck where the landowner's trying to search for a practitioner to get the burn done and the timing for EQIP. I was curious, is that idea still on the table, or just checking on where that was at?
There have been some discussions about that. There's a lot of different details that would have to be worked out, and like how something like that would work. Or I would probably have to do something like a cooperative agreement with NRCS and maybe that particular vendor. So there's still a lot of questions out there as to how we would do something like that, but it is still being discussed.
I will say nationally, there's a lot of interest in the same idea. We're in a pretty good position nationally as far as the state of Georgia for vendors providing resources to landowners to help them do this stuff. Other states are way far behind us. And so there's a lot of interest in this idea. But structurally right now, like as far as like NRCS funding goes, there's quite a bit of limitations on how they can enter into those types of agreements. But it is something that I think is something we need to think about.
Hi, I just wanted to know if we could ask how many private burn contractors are in the room today? Okay. Thanks, we should get more. But thank you all so much for being here.
Yeah, I'm a private burn contractor, and I just want to speak to, I think, the same issue that Dave alluded to, where it definitely seems like there's a bottleneck. I know government agencies have policies and there's rules that they have to follow. We can't recommend, a specific contractor. But I've run into a lot of issues where there's landowners out there seeking burn contractors, and we're here, we're ready, we have the capacity, but we're not getting connected to those landowners to actually go make this happen. Is there anything, any programs, any changes coming down the pike to better facilitate us getting connected with these landowners to be able to conduct these burns?
That's a discussion I've had with a number of folks, is that we need to, GFC's got a fantastic resource on their site about listing different forestry vendors in their state, but sometimes hard for landowners to dig through that list and find the ones in their county that do prescribed burns specifically. And so updating that list and cooperating more with vendors to develop a more user-friendly version of that, I think is something that should be a big help.
One of the things that, I'm going to take a second for a shameless plug. We're having a forestry and wildlife expo in Marion County. It'll be our second annual event, August the 12th in Marion County. Our whole goal for that event is to have local resources meet local landowners. We don't charge anything for vendors to set up a booth or a table, display a piece of equipment. But we do ask them to have some direct tie to forestry or wildlife. And last year we had over 300 people attend the event. So we hope that event will grow this year, but I think fairs, local exhibits are always great places to meet local landowners or expo type events in your local community, because you're 100% right. There are people out there wanting to get burning done, they just can't get the dots connected. And part of that issue is, even if you connect two people, you're giving somebody the keys to your 401k and your kid's future and these other things to put fire on. So it takes a little bit of time to develop some trust with those people. They might just automatically keys to their property, so to speak, to set it on fire. So I would encourage some engagement in some of those local events where you can develop that relationship with them.
Okay, anyone else?
I'll just say, one other thing you could even do is, as landowners are going into NRCS offices and discussing different options for them with the NRCS staff, as a burn vendor, you could do the same thing. Contact local NRCS offices, let them know that you are there and you are available for these sort of things. And if they have a list of vendors, they can make sure that you're on that list.
Okay, thank you all. And that's going to conclude this portion of the program. Everyone, great questions. Please do a round of applause for our panelists today.